Berkeley Allen and Council Member Jeremy Elrod. I was going to say his different name, Jeremy Elrod. I'm Vice Chair of Planning Zoning, Mina Johnson, and I will give the mic to the presenter of the Walk and Bike team.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jennifer Baldwin. Can you hear me? My name's Jennifer Baldwin. I'm with Alta Planning and Design, and we have been working with Metro Public Works and Planning and a very robust steering committee made up of, more than 20 different organizations across Davidson County to develop a draft sidewalk and bikeway strategic action plan. And so we're excited to share the draft with you and talk about some of the public feedback we've had, the process that we've put into it to develop this, and then some of our next steps for implementation. So as I mentioned, we have the very robust steering committee that had more than 50 members on the steering committee. We met with them about 6 times throughout the past year. But we've also been extensively coordinating with the 2 planning efforts that have also been going on at the same time, and Motion, and then the MTA study that's kind of just kicked off this year on the 5 high-capacity transit corridors, and then Parks and Rec with their Plan to Play plan. And so very integrated effort across Metro to make sure that everyone knows what's going on and all of the recommendations and various planning studies are coordinated and talking together. So, one of the things that comes to mind in terms of why build and why draft a strategic action plan for sidewalks and bikeways is one of the framing goals is to have some mode share shift goals that we outline. And, one of the best, I think, deliverables that's been put out so far through this process is the Peer City Report. And we looked at 8 cities across the country, and tried to compare them based on their temperatures, their landscape, their political environment, their population, and also their mode shift and mode share goals that they have, and then their current mode share shift that they're experiencing. And so the plan outlines some pretty aggressive goals for Metro Nashville to shift towards reducing the number of single occupancy vehicles and getting more people on their bikes, comfortable biking for their short trips, as well as walking to transit, and so we can try and tackle the congestion issue that's been happening in Davidson County. So another big focus, this plan is very much driven by implementation. We did not want to put together a document that is going to sit on the shelf and not be implementable. So we're constantly looking at constructability and talking about what's the most feasible and equitable approach for Metro. And so to that vein, we've created 5 basic categories of implementation. One is focusing on new sidewalks, areas that don't have sidewalks. Looking at sidewalk repair, making sure that our existing network and infrastructure is in good state of repair and accessible for all users of all abilities. Creating a robust low-stress bikeway network. And by low stress, we're trying to target the 8 to 80 crowd. So your children, your grandparents, folks that maybe aren't biking every day but would think about biking to the grocery store, to the gym, or to use the Great Greenway Network or to the park instead of driving that short distance. And to do that, we know nationally with our work in other cities, and really internationally, that they're not going to choose to bike more unless they feel comfortable and they're not under stress. And so through design, by separated bike facilities, what they're calling cycle tracks or protected facilities, we separate them from motor vehicle traffic, we can create this low stress network, connecting people to where they want to go. The 4th category is Vision Zero. So the mayor, is definitely proactive for Vision Zero and is a strong initiative here and trying to get to zero traffic deaths. And this is traffic deaths for all users, but it's more than just a marketing tagline. So behind it and our recommendations and steps moving forward, it's creating an evaluation process, studying the crashes, trying to figure out what type of design could be used to mitigate some crashes, or encouragement, enforcement, all the various measures and countermeasures that we can use to make Nashville safer for all users. And then we've created a 5th category recommendation called the Living Lab. And so this recommendation is really trying to push Nashville to be more innovative in its design practice, trying to see if there's lower cost solutions to try and meet the the massive need that we have across the county to build bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure, and also engaging citizens in a very creative and innovative way and putting our citizens to work. We know in other cities like Seattle and Boston, they're doing some really awesome tactical urbanism programs, and the city is supporting citizens to get out there and change the environment and make it safer and give it the kind of cool look and feel that citizens want to do. So these are the 5 main implementation categories that are laid out in the plan. The other thing that I think we're all very proud of is there's a chapter specifically for recommendations. So beyond infrastructure, we know that what makes a very walkable and bikeable community is more than bike lanes and more than sidewalks. There's enforcement components, there's policy, so traffic calming, access through construction, and then on the programmatic side, it's creating encouragement programs, safe routes to school, safety campaigns so that all users understand the rules of the road and what they can do to make a safer place to ride your bike or walk. And then we have a focus on design topics, various things on how to design best practices for bike boulevards, separated bikeways, and then protected intersections. And then the 4th category in recommendations is implementation. So, again, going back to the implementation focus of the plan, we put together these cut sheets that are very concise, to the point. They're 2 pages, front and back, so they can easily be torn out of the plan and become working, living, breathing documents, and to coordinate amongst various metro departments and other outside stakeholders around these topics. So the topic of public art, per se, could have some public art policy discussions as well as stakeholders in really engaging the art community of bringing more public art to our sidewalks and our bike facilities. And so the intent, again, on these cut sheets is they also looked at case studies. So for every recommendation, we've also been looking nationally of what other cities are doing, because there's no need to recreate the wheel. There's a lot we can learn from some other leaders in the country, and they're all incorporated on these cut sheets. So public input, we tried to have, the most robust public input process that we can, beginning with the first phase of the process was just to simply ask residents where they're currently walking, where they're having trouble walking, where they would want to bike more if they could, and really provide their existing condition type of evaluation. And then we've also had significant outreach once the draft was released in January, allowing folks to tell us what they think about the recommendations. We put the networks up on the website in an interactive format so they could go in, zoom in at the recommendations, and tell us what they think. Showed us, calling out specific areas throughout the county of where we need to hone in on recommendations. And then we were also taking an equity component of this and making sure we weren't just relying on folks that had access to online materials. And so we had a paper survey. So we had multiple ways that the people could provide their comments, and then we could evaluate it and input it. And again, it's just one component of how we develop the recommendations in the plan. Okay, so get into the nitty-gritty pieces of the recommendations. I'm going to talk real quick about the Bikeway Network. And today, there's quite a network in place. It's not that connected in Nashville, but there's some really awesome facilities. And so there's about 231 what we're calling, advanced or bikeways for experienced cyclists. These are like the bike lanes on Gallatin Pike. Only your really experienced cyclists would use it, or folks that have no other choice and they need to use that route to get to the bus stop or get to work or home. But it's not the type of facility that people are going to feel comfortable biking on with their kids or with an experienced cyclist. So today there's only about 47 of those miles that we call low stress. That's in a great environment that have facilities that people would feel comfortable on. And when you flip that to what our recommendations are, we're recommending over 180 miles of low stress bike network and a very centralized urban core focus to build the network and the density of where folks currently are to make sure that they have the options to get where they need to go, and then that will build from the core outwards. And then we'll also coordinate with Plan to Play and the Greenway recommendations and priorities to help extend that reach even farther throughout the county. So these are just some photos. Our network is split into 4 main categories. So major separated bikeways, those are your greenways, those are your on-road separated facilities, like what's on First Avenue. And then minor separated doesn't have a vertical separation, but still offers some sort of visual buffer between the travel lane and the bike lane. And then we have a very robust network of bike boulevards. And so these are your calmer streets that are residential, low traffic, low speed, that folks would feel comfortable without the specific separated facility. And this really gives you the access into the neighborhoods. So here's a look at the entire bikeway network. And as you can see, again, it's very centralized to the urban core and then goes out towards the county. And so for the first time, we're recommending a prioritization process for the bikeway network so that we can go after implementation in a prioritized fashion. And there's several different criteria and inputs that we developed similar to the sidewalk process. But the high components are safety, so we're looking at traffic volume, speed, to really try and target that low stress network. And then the big driver here is network connectivity. Does it connect, does the segment connect to a bikeway on either end? And if it does, then it will receive more points because we really want to build that connected network. And I should say from the implementation, we've been very opportunistic here at Metro over the past 5 years, taking advantage of resurfacing projects and other roadway projects to build the bikeway network. In order to move forward with this low-stress network, it is going to take some of the standalone investment to really make a connected network. So you're getting the connections together. And so through this process, it developed the prioritized project list. So this is what we're calling the Priority Bikeway Network, or the PBN. And again, very centrally located. It's a mix of the major separated, minor separated bike boulevards. Okay, and then on the sidewalk network side, to start, so I'm sure this is not news to you, we have a big missing sidewalk problem in Davidson County. There's a lot of deficiencies. Very starking number here that 63% of the existing sidewalk network is currently missing. And so this is looking at the entire county, all the centerline roadway miles, assuming the sidewalk on both sides across the county, which I think we can all agree not all roadways need sidewalk, but to have anything over than 50% is a significant missing sidewalk network. So in comparison, some of our peer cities that we've been looking at, Minneapolis is very centralized and small, so it's not the best peer for this, but they have 92% of their sidewalk network is existing. Seattle has 71%. And Austin has 50%. So again, when you compare it to all peer cities, the missing sidewalk network in Nashville is much greater than a lot of the peer cities that we looked at. So, I mean, that is such a stark number. So how do we go about implementing? We don't have unlimited resources. That I'm sure is a constant debate here in this room, but trying to figure out how we can equitably focus in the resource that we do have and invest in the sidewalk infrastructure that's going to have the most return on investment. So where the users are and where we can distribute the funds. So we took the PGI, the current prioritization process, and updated it into the inputs that you see highlighted in red here are the new inputs into the prioritization process. So we added promote safety. So we took a look at crashes and scored projects if they had multiple number of pedestrian crashes in the corridor. We added a health and equity component using a lot of the data from the MPO. And typically that data pulls from 4 main categories: access to vehicles, obesity rates, population. And then we also, in the moderate impact, we took the great work from Nashville Next, then centers and corridors, and elevated projects that were identified there. And then we also added a category for previously proposed projects, whether that was from Nashville Next, from MTA, any other planning study or small area plan, so that we can elevate projects that have been on the books for a while but haven't been funded. And this is a very simplistic way to talk about a very complex process. And it has to be complex because there's so much need, so trying to figure out where to prioritize. Because, honestly, we do this work across the country. Every sidewalk project is an awesome sidewalk project for those neighbors and people that will use it. So figuring out how to prioritize this is a constant struggle, and there's no right or wrong way of doing this. We do what works best for the community, and we develop a custom approach. And I forgot to mention the existing pieces I think that's driving this is transit access, school access, and then neighborhood access. So it's trying to tie those 3 components together to develop this priority sidewalk network. So then we also decided to group new sidewalk projects into 4 different categories. And one is new sidewalk segments that connect to destinations or transit stops. The second is the school connections, being able to identify the segments that are connecting schools and children, giving them access to walk to school. The Vision Zero, paying particular attention into the crash evaluation, and then sidewalk gaps. So these are any projects that's less than 500 feet. Perhaps it's been a gap that was driven by development. So they came in and put the sidewalk on their frontage, leaving a small gap to the intersection or a small gap between an existing parcel line. And so by grouping these projects into these 4 categories, we can easily sort based on these types of categories in need. So you can see, look, this is the priority sidewalk network. The prioritization process has been applied. They've been grouped in these 4 categories. And this is a very high-level view of the PSN. We sent individual council district maps to each of you, and then you also have available to go to the website and zoom in on that interactive map and take a look at this in closer detail. And this, again, is also distributed across the county. And then what's also showing here is program sidewalk projects. So projects that have been in the works, are currently under design, maybe under construction, or identified for funding are showing up here as programmed. Okay, so then we'll talk more about new sidewalks in a little bit, but another big component of this is sidewalk repair. I mentioned earlier about focusing on maintenance needs, and again, if there's about over 1,100 miles of existing sidewalk currently. And as we start talking about new sidewalk investment, that network is only getting greater, which means our maintenance needs is getting larger. And so we evaluated the existing network and how much funding it would take to keep improving the existing sidewalk network. And there was an inventory done, I think in 2014, that ranked projects based on their existing condition. And we're proposing to focus in on the sidewalks that are showing in poor or fair condition. We're also recommending in this plan a prioritization process to really focus in on where the maintenance needs to be occurring. And the caveat to all of this is that ADA drives a lot of the maintenance needs, and we have to be very responsive to requests and issues with access. And so we can recommend this prioritization process so that we can target in on our investment, but we still need to be able to have some funds and the flexibility to be responsive to ADA requests. So then strategic implementation. So that's just an overview of the categories. And now we're going to talk a little bit about so what does this mean from a strategy perspective and investment? And the first thing that we want to talk about too is just set the stage for the sheer size of Davidson County and the need of where we are. And so this is a graphic of our 8 peer cities that we put up. This is their area in square miles, so the square footage. So you can see Nashville by far is larger than any of the other peer cities. And this becomes a big challenge, as you're talking about growth and investment and infrastructure. And so as you compare that to other peer cities, they've been very creative in their funding sources. So for instance, Indianapolis has raised over $62 million to implement their 8-mile low-stress bikeway network. And that $62 million was raised in large part by private investment. In Seattle, they passed a Move Seattle $930 million levy in 2015 to invest in transit, sidewalk, and bikeways. And so lots of different creative funding sources. The plan itself doesn't recommend funding sources. That's for for you guys and the mayor to work through as part of the budget process. But it does lay out different funding sources from federal funds to different peer city examples to show what other cities are currently doing to invest in bikeway and sidewalk networks. So now I'm going to talk through a high-level look at some funding scenarios and what that means for the priority network investment and the return on that investment. And before I start talking about this is all high-level, simply from the prioritization process. It's the empirical score. So it's the segments have been scored and given a score, and then they get a cutoff to make the priority sidewalk network. There still needs to be, and Michael will talk about this in more detail in a couple of minutes, the constructability audit and the project list development. But this is still the very high level, from the planning level, look at where the priorities are and where we need to be focusing for implementation. So for new sidewalk needs, we split them across the 4 categories of destinations, transit access, school connections, sidewalk gaps, and Vision Zero. There's about 66 miles in the Priority Sidewalk Network. And if you spent $15 million a year for 5 years on the Priority Sidewalk Network, it would take 29 years to build the PSN. If you spent $30 million a year, it would take 14 years to build the PSN out. And if you spent $86 million a year on new sidewalk, it would take 5 years to build the Priority Sidewalk Network. And this is just a graphic representation of these scenarios and the level of investment. And you can see this is just showing the projects that would be selected, again, from the high-level planning level view for the $15 million per year scenario. Here is what you would get for the $30 million for 5 years, and then the $86 million for 5 years is the full Priority Sidewalk Network. And then on sidewalk repair, we put the numbers together, in order to tackle the projects within the fair and poor condition, currently evaluated condition. There's about 418 miles of that. Spending $5 million for 5 years, it would take 47 years to repair that 418 miles of existing sidewalk. $15 million for 5 years would take 16 years, and if you invested $47 million in sidewalk maintenance, it would take 5 years to fully repair all the sidewalk miles that were evaluated in fair or poor condition. And that's only as good as 2014, so that would still take an annual review and evaluation of your existing sidewalk network. So the Priority Low Stress Network, I showed you that photo earlier, very centralized recommendation for low stress bikeways, $1 million a year investment in the 82-mile network. You would complete that network in 40 years. At $4 million a year for 5 years, it could be complete in 10 years. And at $8 million a year for 5 years, it could be completed in 5 years. And here's the map that shows you for $1 million a year for 5 years, this is the downtown network that you could get, the urban core central network. If you invested $4 million a year, you can see it start to fill in and start making those connections. And then here is the full Priority Bikeway Network and the connected network that you get with the larger investment. And then for the Vision Zero recommendations, we pulled these directly from the Bicycle and Pedestrian Safety Pilot Study to make sure we incorporated those, and then also added projects that had multiple pedestrian crashes along the corridor. And with an annual funding allocation of $15 million, that would result in about 2.4 miles of these high crash locations, and it would also have intersection improvements associated with that. And again, the plan details, we had some very detailed and high-level cost estimates applied network-wide. That's how we got to a lot of these cost estimates and scenarios. Now I'm going to turn it over to Michael. I use that. Oh, we can switch.
You want me to use this? Good afternoon. Good afternoon. There we go. So I'm Michael Briggs in the planning department, and so you're probably wondering, why is planning up here when we have Public Works logo on it? But you'll notice on our team, we have both planners and engineers within both Public Works and planning, and we also have folks that were consultants on the Plan to Play plan. So you're getting a range of expertise that's involved with this team that have worked through the In Motion plan, the Nashville Next plan, Plan to Play, and now the Walk and Bike plan. And the reason I had Jennifer turn it over to Metro staff is because it's an important message going forward of how we implement the plan. And we've heard a lot of frustration from residents, both on the transparency of projects and then how we take an actual plan document and actually make it happen. And so we're working better across different departments to address a number of these issues. And I think moving forward, where we initially envisioned this plan resulting in a list of projects for 5 years, we'll be much more engaged on a yearly basis of updating the plan and keeping our residents informed. And so we'll be putting together a 3-step process that takes what we've done with the Priority Sidewalk Network, and it begins to apply a constructability audit. So the Priority Sidewalk Network is basically just spitting out what we are putting in as being our priorities and what we heard through the steering committee and through our residents of what was important to begin connecting people with for their walking needs. So that network is just putting out a number. You'll notice it is getting some areas where it's building redundancy in the network. So, and to use an example, you'll see in Madison, for example, off of Gallatin Pike, there's a number of parallel streets that are identified, but they come up because they're connected to future transit needs that are in a Tier 1 and Tier 2 center in that area based on Nashville Next. And so we'll be looking at those areas and really tweaking out that there really needs to be 1 or 2 corridors that we focus on in 1 year and not blanket that whole neighborhood with sidewalks and begin reallocating some of those other resources to other projects that score high on the list. So you'll see with step 2 and step 3 that there'll be a significant coordination across departments that will be underway that you'll be hearing more about as we go through that each year. And then as part of wrapping it up each year, we'll be working with the council members as they go through the capital improvements budget, with residents through community meetings and getting feedback and making it a much more collaborative process on an annual basis. So what was emailed out to you last week was also a proposed implementation schedule, and you'll see on it we're really at the beginning of, if you look at it every year, beginning of that cycle this year of updating the Priority Sidewalk Network, basically spitting out that map saying this is empirically where we think we need to focus our needs and begin publishing that. While that is going on, there'll be coordination with the capital improvements budget. So as that process continues to evolve, you all as council members will be making recommendations to the CIB either before February or during some of this time as what's taking place this year. And some of that's still being fleshed out and evolving. But then by the time we move into April, we'll have rescored each year the Priority Sidewalk Network based on the changing needs and begin a constructability audit. And so we'll shift from that Priority Sidewalk Network and begin tweaking what needs to move in some of these areas. And we'll be providing justification as to why we're making decisions. So to pick on Madison again, if there's a number of parallel streets that are leading to Gallatin Road, we'll probably want to focus on a collector out of those or another street that is experiencing high speeds, and then look at other areas where we need to pick up projects that score high in other areas. And so that way we're not just focused on one neighborhood, but begin tackling needs that are jumping out across different districts. The other thing that will be going on in this process in April is projects that come up high during the constructability audit in terms of funding needs, begin flagging them for grants so that we can go after other funds that can supplement the Metro funds for these sidewalk projects. And so some of those are going to be really tough on our high capacity transit corridors. So if you think of Dickerson Pike, Charlotte Pike, Murfreesboro Pike, where we have significant sidewalk gaps and there are walking needs today, we really have to go after federal funds to supplement what Metro can do each year. Then as you move from spring into summer, you all are going through the budget process, debating on what needs to be funded, what doesn't need to be funded. There's opportunities for residents to voice concerns during that time on funding. So that is another way that residents can get the message across to our decision makers on sidewalk needs. And then hopefully by July, we have a budget that's wrapped up and we're able to produce a more feasible draft scheduled list that contains the justification from the Priority Sidewalk Network that we then take to the community in August and September and begin community meetings and getting additional feedback. And so by the time we get into August, the draft list is published. We begin on a rotating cycle of updating the 5-year project list. September, the justifications and residents will have an opportunity to review the projects at meetings. And then by October, we hope to have a final list that would use those funds that were authorized on July 1. As part of that, and I failed to mention, we'll be centering everything around a walk and bike status tracker. So some of the issues that we heard, being frustrated about not knowing the status of sidewalks, what's moving forward, but also giving Metro flexibility. So if we encounter problems of constructing a sidewalk, we're able to publish why maybe a project has stalled. So it could be issues with utilities, topography, residents that maybe we didn't foresee not wanting a project. We're able to justify why something maybe has stalled, and we maybe need to look at a different project that needs to move forward with that year's funding. And so I think this is something that we'll be really excited about, that will kind of center the conversation, I think, each year on sidewalks. And we can also apply the same process to our Bikeways program. And so then the process would just be repeated each year. So beginning then in spring, we would rerun the Priority Sidewalk Network, begin doing a constructability audit, and then tweaking some of the sidewalks that are coming out of that process and having public review. This is an example from Seattle of what the status tracker could look like. So it would contain detailed information about sidewalk projects, including the termini. We can give a status of if it's underway in design, if it's in a constructability audit stage and hasn't moved out of that, we can note that. If it's stalled for some reason, we can put that in there. And so this will give both council members and residents more transparent information and an ability to be able to track projects as they move forward, and then also provide accountability for if projects stall or other projects need to move ahead of others that you may have been thinking were moving forward. So with that, Jason Radinger is the project manager on the project with Public Works, and we have several folks from Public Works and Planning that can address any questions and concerns you'll have.
Thank you, Jennifer and Michael. It was very great presentation. I am so excited to see Sidewalk Tracker. Now I open the floor for questions. Councilmember Anthony Davis.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you guys for being here. Just a couple quick questions. I think you kind of touched on this a little bit, but we've been harping the last couple of years on getting more percentage towards new sidewalk and less towards the repair. Is that 100% happening? I guess who decided that, and is that just part of all y'all's plans that will happen?
Right, so the approach that the walk and bike plan takes is it describes the extent of the problem. So the extent of the sidewalk repair problem and then the entire existing missing sidewalk network. The funding allocations, that's not included as a recommendation. So that's a funding discussion that the mayor and city council will have. So specific recommendations are not in the plan. The scenarios talking about, we asked the public, would you rather see more investment in sidewalk repair or new sidewalks? And they were about 50-50 split on that. So it depends on where you live and what your issues are. I think, from the public output or input that we received and then the national experience and review, ADA accessibility is such a high priority everywhere and making sure that we're responsive to need. But there is such a huge missing new sidewalk, which is also an ADA and accessibility issue for all users. So it's hard to, really to that split. So it does not have a specific, percent split.
Sure. Okay, well, I'm just going to push the needle again on our end and definitely say, from what I'm hearing from constituents, I know a lot of my colleagues have, we'd like to see more new. I guess that sounds like it's up to us and the mayor. So I know the mayor, last term felt that way a little bit as well. So we'll definitely keep looking at that. We get asked a lot for calming measures. I guess this is more of a walking than biking. My only answer usually is, I'll put the police there for some spot checking, and I talk about how Public Works won't do the speed humps anymore. Is there some new measures that you guys have thought of? I know out west they're doing a lot more bump outs and stuff like that. Are there some things that we can do that are not that expensive that I can start to talk to constituents and maybe we could look at on the ground with Public Works, or things that we can do that we can bring from out west?
Yeah, there's actually a cut sheet in the recommendations chapter for traffic calming, talks about some other case studies, and then makes the recommendation to revamp the traffic calming program, adding some more best practices in design. And that's more important for pedestrians, but also for cyclists and the Bike Boulevard network. Again, because that is a very low-speed network, it's traffic calming along streets that are already comfortable for biking. So that can have the side benefit to make them more walkable and comfortable as well. So I would take a look at both of those cut sheets. It has individual recommendations.
That's in the presentation y'all are going to send us, or it's in the report?
That's in the full draft plan report.
Okay, cool. Awesome.
Really quickly, we've also been talking with Public Works staff on this very issue recently. And so we're looking at it in sort of two areas, both what we can do within the pavement. So there are things that where we have a really wide asphalt where we can carve out space for people to walk, and it may not be your traditional sidewalk, but it's through restriping, parking stalls, bumpers. There's things we can do to make it more comfortable on some of the residential streets that won't see sidewalks in the very near future, to encourage people to feel safer walking. And then there's also the question of where do we apply this? Because if we allow ourselves to do it, we also have to give opportunities for developers to try some innovative things as well. So if there are areas where we don't require curb and gutter, where is that appropriate? And we're having those discussions now and kind of debating internally. Downtown is probably not an option to do that, but in your suburban areas on a residential street, those different ideas are a lot more feasible.
Yeah, and that was my last comment, was sort of about creative striping. That was where I was going next. I think you've sort of hit on that, like a Riverwood Drive or something is what I'm thinking of, right off of Gallatin. It's going to take me forever to get the sidewalk. Maybe there's the creativity of the less curb and gutter sidewalk, which is cheaper than the regular sidewalk, but maybe we can do several of those streets with just the creative striping. I've got enough room on that side there. Can we, I don't know if you block it green or what it is you're thinking about. So if I could definitely just kind of get in the right direction, I'll print some of these sheets out, and I'd love to talk to Public Works about some ideas and do a couple of trials that don't sound that expensive. So thank you.
Yeah, and in the recommendations chapter, there's a cut sheet for low-cost sidewalk implementation, looking at some of these creative strategies. I will say, nationally, this is a new movement, so Seattle's kind of led the low-cost sidewalk. It takes a lot of evaluation, and it's very context sensitive. It's not going to work everywhere, and we have to work through the existing standards. So it's kind of changing the massive ship that is Metro's way of doing things and creating flexible. That's why we created that living lab category of implementation, and you'll see that in the recommendation, because it really needs some pilot studies. So we can pilot some things, see if it works, evaluate, and be flexible if we need to adjust. And so that's going to be the approach for that creative solution.
Councilmember O'Connell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have several questions, so I'm happy to split this up as, to ensure that everybody gets a fair opportunity to take a crack at this. Just real quickly off the bat, my understanding is this particular plan will continue to be housed at Public Works, is that right? And then if we have feedback after the plan is finalized, does that go to the project manager for Walk and Bike who kind of presided over it, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and then the status tracker is mentioned just a couple times in the plan, and I know, Michael, you just kind of reviewed it. I missed, did you say who's going to be implementing the status tracker, and are we anticipating it on what date? And then I guess finally, kind of in terms of this being a living plan, will the plan actually be updated to offer more information to the public, including the online location of the tracker once it's available?
Those are good questions. So we're keeping the Walk and Bike website link so that everything will be directed there. It may end up having a Metro web page that's behind it at some point. I can't give you an exact date as to when the status tracker will be ready.
Is that a Public Works thing, an ITS thing, a planning thing?
It's going to be a joint effort between planning and public works. So it may be on planning's page, it could be on public works page. We still have to get those internal issues figured out, but we do intend to keep the walk and bike site up. I would say probably a late fall would be when you can expect the information, because we want to settle in on a project list. And then that would be your first round of projects that then get updated.
Okay, great, thanks. Then I know there's a specific recommendation, or I guess kind of collection of recommendations around construction zones, but for my constituents in particular and people that I know travel through or adjacent to my district, the concern is a lot bigger than just construction zones. It's about access to rights of way. So, for instance, the Siegenthaler pedestrian bridge, the closed greenway by First Tennessee Park, we have a lot of scenarios that have nothing to do with construction, and I didn't notice any commentary in the plan on just general principle of access to public rights of way. I don't know if there is a commentary or a section that I should look in for more information on that front, but I didn't see anything that was non-construction related.
There isn't anything specific to that. If there's specific case studies or examples, we could definitely take a look and see if that's something that needs to be added.
Okay, yeah. I'm happy to send that feedback. I know it came up several times in the public meetings about this, so I was a little surprised not to see it in the final draft. Just a basic cost. I know there's the kind of review of MCSP versus going a little more lo-fi on some of the infrastructure. Did I miss a comparison of our sidewalk construction costs with peer cities? Is that analysis in there at all?
So when we did the Peer City report, we asked for construction costs, and it basically, talking to them, it's not apples to apples, because it wasn't fair to really say that, well, they're paying this, but we don't know what the rate of development is. We don't know if it's internal forces, external. So it didn't get into that level of detail. We asked the question, and they just chose not to respond for those. So it was surveyed to the peer cities.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
I will say that the costs that we have here are incredibly comprehensive. So it's taking in design, inspection, construction. So they're very high-level cost estimates, to help us to really determine the extent of need, and then as that constructability audit happens, those cost estimates will be refined for the individual projects.
Right. I just want to make sure that it, obviously, as there are other growing cities in the United States, that when we do go to build, that we're building at comparable costs, or that we're at least cognizant of whether or not there is something that we ought to know about as a city that is affecting, putting upward pressure on our costs, that kind of thing.
Councilmember O'Connell, if I may, there are
Yes,
several people in the
I will
queue.
let
Let
them
me come
go.
back to you.
Thank you, Council Lady.
Thank you. Next, Council Lady Hart.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've got a few concerns. I think that in the walk and bike proposal, Jefferson Street had been included, but it has now been taken out. And I don't understand that, simply because that community is probably the sickest, where they need the exercise. They need a way to encourage them to do better about their health. And I saw that you had the health and equity as part of the sidewalks. So I think that would be good if you utilize that for the walk and bike as well when you prioritize that. And then I'm concerned about the sidewalks. I live in Bellevue, and my next door neighbor that lives on a different street has a sidewalk, but I don't have one. I don't know how that happens. Also, during the time that I was overseeing District 1, there were children having to walk on the street, walking to school, and I don't understand why there's no priority to put sidewalks in that district, as well as District 2, because I know down Buena Vista Pike, there's no sidewalks. So I'm not sure how you prioritize who gets it and who doesn't, because I don't think it's a matter of whether they should or should not. It is when should it be done. So I need to know how you prioritize those things, and how we can make sure that these are prioritized in a proper way.
Yes. Thank you for those comments. So the prioritization process, again, this is a high level, and I'd be happy after the meeting we can get down into the nitty gritty. We have the information here on the individual inputs and their scoring. But so school access, if the missing sidewalk segment falls within a quarter mile of a school, it triggered the project. But there's many different inputs. So it's school access, transit access, where growth is occurring, where the population is most dense. Because the scenario that you just said, I agree with you. That's a big need, and that's where sidewalk investment needs to occur, and that can be the case in multiple areas across the county. We saw it happen. We've got a lot of in our existing condition analysis.
I can tell you that in District 1 and 2, I lived on Buena Vista Pike for 13 years, and I moved there in 1982. They didn't have sidewalks then, and they don't have them now. So I don't know where they fall in priority. So I don't know if it's just a matter of where you live, where you get the priority or not, because, you know, even though in some places in District 1 there were, like at Lillard School, but the sidewalks were in such terrible shape, it's embarrassing. So, I mean, I need to hear something better than that.
Okay. Let's talk after at 4 o'clock. I'd love to hear more about those details.
Council Lady Van Lees, we have about 5 minutes until before the next meeting starts, so if we can quickly go through 3 other members in the queue.
Sure. I just wanted to piggyback on some ideas that Councilman Anthony Davis had mentioned in regard to both a bike path that pedestrians can also use, and I don't know if there's been any look at kind of like share the road kind of situation, because I know that it's happening instinctually anyway on Gallatin, right? And people are using the bike lane for a sidewalk,
right.
And I'm wondering if we can do that on purpose, and see if that's been something that's been discussed.
Yeah, we specifically have talked about that. So Davidson Street is a good example of both people walking and biking over in East Nashville. I would envision that we'd have more projects like that. And in fact, we've debated on, do we call them sidewalks or traffic calming?
Next, Councilmember Boucher.
Thank you, Chair, and I apologize if I've missed this already, but one of my questions was, I don't know if I direct it to you or if this is a Public Works, how do we prioritize where they go? And the methodology behind the scoring, how's that, how do we do that in determining where they should go? We had a good conversation regarding the creative stripe, and so I think I'll be following up with Public Works regarding that also. And I just want to echo some of the sentiments that's already been shared. We really need to look at where we put our sidewalks, specifically around bus routes. And also in school zones also. Out in Southeast, we do have children that's walking to school where there's no sidewalks. So when we do the sidewalk day every year, they don't have any sidewalk. Although they participate, they're not actually walking on sidewalks.
Thank you.
Last question, Council Lady Henderson.
Thank you, Council Lady Johnson. I guess my question was around from the budgetary perspective. If we recognize as a city we have such a high hurdle in being behind on sidewalks, and another high hurdle because our cost of typical sidewalks with our ditches and the stormwater infrastructure having to be incorporated, how, as we move towards budget season and all kind of the good work that you are doing, Michael, are we going to, I mean, there's the projected, with this priority network, if you wanted to do this, you would have to fund at that. But, I mean, that just sort of seems to be looking only at the priority network and not keeping in mind the Bikeway piece, the Learning Lab piece, the segments piece. I think historically we've just said, oh, we're putting, $30 million in the sidewalk bucket. And I wonder, based on the work that you're doing, do you think we as Budget and Finance and Public Works committees can work with you all to get to a place where we're being more kind of strategic in how we are kind of splitting up that instead of saying it's one big bucket and looking at how that works based on the constructability audits and so forth?
Yeah, I think we would be open to you all's guidance on that moving forward. And, you know, we as staff can provide perspective on that. And so we would hope you would ask those questions at that time. You know, and the list that I've got on the slide, you know, at 86 million, there's no way we can allocate that much within Metro to do that, and we're not staffed up to be able to do that. And there's probably not consultants within the city that would be able to take on. So I think we're open to looking at different percentages that are allocated, and it could change by year. You know, there may be one year where we want to put more resources into new sidewalks and maybe less into the living lab, or maybe we want to shift more into living lab the next year.
Thank you so much for the great presentation and great questions. I believe our Walk Back team will be available for continuous questions. Thank you so much. Meeting is now adjourned.